Well, welcome everybody to my YouTube channel, The Courage to Teach Differently. I hope that you have been able to enjoy some of the videos on my channel and that you have liked and subscribed so that you can receive all the greatest, latest videos that I'm creating when I talk about Finnish education. So we are in the middle or nearing the end of a series on creativity and critical thinking and agency, student agency. Last week I talked about how important it is for students to have a part in their learning journey. And this week I'm going to talk to you about not only do they need to have a voice and a choice in the classroom, but they need to be able to have opportunities to lead. So this brings us to the whole idea of leadership in education and how it can be practiced and used in the classroom. So we go from creativity, which we've been talking about for a couple weeks now, to building confidence, and which moves us into agency and leadership. So what does learning look like when students take the lead? Right? This is, as teachers, we want to plan, and I get it. We want to be able to have control of the classroom and make sure they're progressing through the content material and so forth. But really, as a Finnish teacher, much of the planning is done by way of an outline, right? So we come to the classroom with a potential structured outline of what's going to happen. But then with the students, they become part of the planning process. They get to choose how they're going to learn those things. And so as teachers, we provide the content. We might provide the rubric, right? The level that they need to achieve in order for the project or the learning to be satisfactory. But the how of it, the students get to be a part of. So when we think of leadership, we often imagine adults standing in front of the room. But classrooms can be powerful spaces for student leadership. And I'm not talking about this standing up in front of the room necessarily. It can be a presentation of, where they're presenting something. But leadership can also be practiced in small groups, in large groups, in a variety of ways. So when students begin to own their ideas, question their assumptions, and chart their own paths forward, something fundamental shifts. We're talking about community. We're talking about circle integration, where everybody has some equity and some meat in the game, right? They're all there trying to reach a goal. So classrooms transform from a space of passive reception, which is the more traditional way, into a vibrant community of thinkers, creators, collaborators. They're not just listeners that follow directions. So as teachers, we used to traditionally walk into the class and the students sat there quietly and just listened like a sponge. But what we want is active learning. We want them participating in the process. They want them participating in the decisions in the classroom. And why? Why does this agency matter so much? Because, for example, Pasi Sahlberg challenges us to build learning environments where trust replaces testing as the foundation, right? So when a student feels trusted to think independently, to design their own approaches, and to contribute meaningfully, they build not only their identity of who they are, but they build confidence. They become stronger students. They become more interested in learning and controlling what's ahead of them. So agency isn't about relinquishing control, believe it or not. I'm not advocating for teachers to sit back and do less work and not have to do so much. What I'm really talking about is a mindset shift in the classroom, an environmental shift in the classroom. It's about trusting that students are capable of guiding their own intellectual and personal growth. So what does the equation for agency look like? You're talking about voice. So within circle integration, giving everybody an opportunity to speak, even the quiet ones, even the more talkative ones, understanding empathy and learning respect. All of that is part of voice, sharing perspectives, being empathetic. You add voice with choice. So now they've got a part in the planning process, they've got a part in the activities they're learning. And then including in that is our reflection, because in Finnish education, reflection is a big part of the learning process. So students are going to examine their work, assessing their growth, and considering the next steps, deciding what worked in their group, what didn't, what worked individually, what didn't. And those three, you add them all up, you mix them all together, and you get ownership, which is true investment in learning outcomes, and personal development emerges. They become amazing students, right? Exactly what we want. They are motivated internally. They are excited. They come to school ready to learn. They go home excited to tell mom and dad all the different things that they went through today, how they processed, how they were creative, and how they understood what was on the docket for the day. So here's how this plays out. For example, in a group project, students are asked to take on different roles, or they volunteer for different roles based on their strengths or their interests. They take genuine responsibility for the collaboration process, navigating challenges together, and reflecting afterward on what worked and what didn't. The reflection, not the grade, transforms the participation into ownership, right? The grade is something that we can put in a book, and the government is happy with that grade. But for the student individually, it's not about the grade. It's about confidence and ownership of their learning journey. Many of my users, many of my viewers are part of the CBC or CBE in Kenya, competency-based education or curriculum. And so what we're talking about here, agency, is still very much a part of CBE, because communication, collaboration, and self-efficacy are all a foundational part of student agency. So agency connects directly to the competencies in CBE. A teacher might establish the learning topic and the success criteria, the rubrics, but students design how they will explore it, choosing research methods, presentation formats, and collaborative structures. And I will just pause here for a moment, because you might be thinking to yourself, oh, this all sounds really great, Vanessa, but my kids are grade 1 or my kids are kindergarten. How can they have student agency when they are so young? But they can. You just allow them to take on ownership at their level, right? So obviously they're not going to have big, huge presentations that are digitized, and they're standing up in front of the class and doing all this stuff, and they're having these in-depth conversations. No, obviously not. But at that level, even 5 and 6 and 7-year-olds, they are very capable of solving problems when they have disagreements. They're very capable of working together, given those opportunities and the time, right? Remember, teachers are observing, stepping back, allowing the students time to process, and not stepping in too quickly to solve a problem. This gives them the structure of freedom, clear boundaries, but within a genuine agency. So again, what I was just talking about. So the teacher shifts from the director or the teacher or the one that's bringing all the information to the designer, the outline of how the day is going to go. So the teacher's role evolves from controlling every outcome to thoughtfully designing opportunities for student initiative. So what this would look like is, instead of if you're, for example, if you're working on the water cycle, right? Instead of having 5 small groups, and they all design a water cycle on a poster, right? You might end up with one group doing a drama. You might have one group doing an art project. You might have one group deciding they wanted to write a story about the water cycle and the adventures of a character in the water cycle. You might have another group doing a poster. You might have another group doing a news report or something, right? So instead of having this uniform little robotic outcome, you have this creative, reflective, critical thinking outcomes in your classroom. And when we intentionally step back and not plan for everything and allow the students to have the freedom to have some agency in our class, the students naturally will be creative and excited about the process. We move from being the source of all answers to creating environments where learners take initiative, experiment, make mistakes, and discover solutions. This shift doesn't mean doing less. It means designing more meaningfully, intentionally, right? Using your learning stations to hit a variety of different learning styles, a variety of angles. Maybe if you're doing a math lesson, combining math with art, maybe combining math with English, combining math with science, right? Very intentionally planning the learning activities in the classroom. Moving away from worksheets to these station learning areas. So just as an example, in science, probably a lot of you are familiar with the seed lessons, right? Where they put a seed in the water and soak it for a while until it gets soft. Then they pull it apart. They learn the inside of a seed. Then they'll put the seed in a Ziploc bag and watch the roots growing. And then they'll move on to planting seeds and changing the environments and things like that. So we can do this activity where the students are exploring these different avenues of seeds and how plants grow. And the teacher will step back and allow the students to just sort of experiment and understand the seeds in their own way, right? Maybe one is taking it apart and looking at all the parts, and the other one is taking it and tasting it a little bit. I wonder how this tastes, right? And that's all exploring. There's nothing wrong with that kind of behavior in the classroom. So the student leaders guide their classmates in setting up mini experiments with seeds. They record their observations, they share surprising discoveries, and they patiently help each other with a seed that maybe isn't sprouting or with a challenge that they're having to get the seeds to grow. And they become little scientists themselves. And that's all agency. That's all what I'm talking about. So my question to you guys, if in the community, if you want to reflect on this question and jot down some comments below in this video, I would love to have a conversation with you about what your thoughts are about what would happen this week if you let students design the next step. So giving it a try, right? Setting up your lesson this week just with the outline or the main structure of the topics, and then bringing that to the class and allowing the students to be part of this planning process and seeing where their minds take them and allowing them to be curious and creative and just observing how that changes the environment in your classroom. Agency often starts small. When one chance, one idea, one invitation to lead happens, when we give students space to design even a small part of their learning journey, so you don't need to redesign everything that you have planned. Just start small with one small thing. Either it's starting with bringing circle integration into your day, or adding one station during a topic lesson, right? Or 2 stations as you grow into these finished concepts and ideas. And then observing and seeing how that environment in your classroom is changing and moving towards more active, more participatory learning. So the question isn't whether students are ready. Even at the age of 5, they are ready given the opportunity. The question is, are we as teachers and administrators ready to trust them to actually take on this job of learning? So just back to the equation, how do we get to agency? We start with creativity. We move from creativity to confidence. And then once confidence is built, then they will feel stronger and more able to take on agency and ownership of their learning. When students are trusted to explore, experiment, and lead, creativity becomes confidence, and confidence becomes agency in motion. If you would like to know more about creativity or critical thinking or how to make lesson plans, check out my other videos on the YouTube channel, The Courage to Teach Differently. We are focusing a lot on leadership and the transversal competencies and CBE education. So if you're just wondering how this works, check out those videos. It'll give you a lot of practical hands-on ideas for how to implement these ideas in your classroom. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you next time. Bye.